Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's CX Quick Tips. And I got Russel Lolacher with me, and we're going to talk about what is social media in 2021. And so Russell brought up a very good question. Is your organization still championing for the fax machine? Oh, something for us to potentially worry about, huh? Russell, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, I probably think it's important to talk about. You are right now celebrating a 10th year anniversary for your social media customer service team, but you probably were also important to talk about where you're doing that at, because I think for me that's quite forward thinking and also gives us a really unique perspective into where we are today and maybe where we're going in the future.
Where I'm at, yeah, so I basically lead the social media customer care team for the Ministry of Transportation out of British Columbia. We do a Ministry of Transportation, so we're dealing with emergencies, floods, but also, should I have winter tires on right now? Or what is a winter tire? How do you drive a roundabout? So these are we get a lot of questions, and we've grown and grown over 10 years to build a lot of trust and relationships with the public. And as a government agency, I think that's really important to embrace social media as one of the vital channels to get to your customers.
Well, and okay, so you say customers, or do you say constituents, or do you say citizens? I mean, how do you actually talk about the people who you're serving?
For me and my team, we talk about customers. Constituents is more of a political term. So when we're dealing with customers or we're dealing with our audience, or we're working, at the end of the day, I work in the public service and I'm there to serve the public. So sometimes public will be interchanged with customer, but it's really the exact same thing. Public service is customer service.
You mentioned also something about the whole buy-in and the organizational support around social customer care. And you said that you're serving a lot of engineers, and you said, try to convince a 75-year-old engineer why Twitter's important. So tell us why social media customer care is important.
Because that's where your customers are. I have a lot of conversations with organizations in government, outside of government, and there's sometimes a lot of hesitancy when it comes to getting into that. I guess it's very much a broadcast sphere. You're very much in the public having one-on-one conversations. And they're immediately like, ooh, I can't control it. Ooh, I don't know. They might say bad things. They're already saying bad things. If they're saying bad things, you're just not part of the conversation anymore. I think there's too many stats coming out of Salesforce and Microsoft and Edison Research that basically says everybody's on social and they expect you to be on social as well, because that's where they're going for their questions. It might even be social. It might be Google, and they're searching for their information, and that shows up through social and content marketing. So you have to be there because your customers are, and that's where they expect you to be.
I think it's really important what you're saying, because oftentimes within an organization, for a multitude of different reasons, we may be cursed in our perceptions. If I'm that 75-year-old engineer, why do I need social? If I am familiar with social, I may think that, hey, everybody's familiar with social. I may think that people who use social, just say that Twitter for an example, that they all use it in the same way. Heck, I know that I even still field questions by people calling me because I have a website that says something about customer care, and they'll call me thinking I'm like Lowe's or Home Depot customer care. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know how that happens, right? But it does. And so when you start thinking about being integrated in your organization, how are you integrated into yours?
Well, so I said it was been 10 years. So it was a journey in a nutshell. So without going deep into it, I would say the first half, and still to this day, is very much about the change management and buy-in. I need to shake the hand of that 75-year engineer and go, I don't want you ever to be on Twitter, but I need you to answer questions that my team has to answer the public, not in I'll get to that in a week, but I need that answer in 15 minutes. And I don't need that to go through 17 levels of approval, because then you're not serving your customer, you're serving your organization more. So it was very much about building trust internally before I could start building trust externally, especially in an organization. Like I said, I use engineers who are very forward thinking, but are not as sometimes comfortable with new ways of interacting. So for my 10 years, how we're integrated, the first half was building that trust so that in the second half, my team could build the internal relationships with our emergency teams, our public relations group, our engineers, our frontline service staff, so that we could find out what are people asking questions about? What do they want to know? So that we can create content that people actually are looking for because they're already asking for it. So that was a big part, is that we integrate with our frontline staff. We integrate with every touch point in our organization because we need to educate the public as to what these people do, because as a government organization, sometimes cracking that nut or getting behind the curtain isn't always set up that way. It's not always set up that way for easy access or accessibility in a nutshell. So we're integrated as I like to call it operational customer service. We're doing proactive and reactive customer service by basically making sure our internal relationships are strong so that we can be a conduit for them. People ask me how big my social media team, I say a couple of thousand people, because I can't know what's happening in the far reaches of my province. I need to have them on my team.
Well, as you're saying that, obviously you have a more mature model. You've been going at it a lot longer than others. But it still begs the question in my mind is, I'm sitting there, it's January 2020. Now we're sitting here January 2021. How has things changed for you in regards to social?
Busy. That's really what's happened. Is that here's the downside of being successful. Busy. So when we first started, my team was writing and creating content a lot more. Now they don't as much. Because we've amassed amount of content that we can just tweak and update and moderate. But we are so busy interacting with customers now because they know we're a source of truth. They know we'll respond. They know that we will help them, or at least we're an ear for them to talk to. So our engagement numbers just keep growing and growing and growing. And my team doesn't necessarily scale as quickly as my engagement does. So we have doubled down on the engagement. So what has changed from 2020 to 2021? Public expectations. And it's going to keep going up. That's the one thing about expectations. They never go down. I was in a meeting once and I had a manager, I think it was outside of government, and they asked if the public's expectations were realistic. And the answer is, it doesn't matter. That's what their expectations are. If you're not meeting them, you're not meeting their expectations, regardless if they're realistic or not. So that's the biggest thing that's changed. The tools haven't changed. The need for the public to get answers to their questions or fixing their problems hasn't changed. It's just growing. And that's from all demographics and all personas.
So when you start thinking about, where you are and where you're going, what would you say, or why would you, if somebody was asking, why do I really need to put this in, whether it's a government agency or an organization, why do I need to do this so much? What would your answer be?
I think the first answer is you need to consider it. I am never one to say hard yes or hard no, because I don't know your customers. I don't know how they want to communicate. If they still want the fax machine, send it by fax, but find it out from them. Don't assume yourself. I'm very big proponent of the outside in thinking rather than inside out thinking. It's understanding your customers. So if anybody comes to me about starting a social media customer care program, the first question I always ask is why? Why are you starting it? Oh, Twitter. Why do you want to be on Twitter? If you don't know those answers to your questions, you're not curious enough. You don't know enough about your customer to know how they want to interact or how your organization is built to interact. So I think the first question has to ask why, and then your capacity. Because if you can't scale, you're going to start failing pretty quickly as your success grows, because you won't be able to keep up with demand if you're doing a good job. Because if you're doing a bad job, believe me, your public will tell you.
So with that being said, you talked about busy, you talked about demand and all of that. I mean, how much more demand are you getting from others to kind of, learn from you?
I'm very honored and feel really blessed that people reach out a lot. Other government agencies across the U.S. I've had the pleasure of talking at conferences in the U.S. as well about the importance of government and government agencies and NGOs embracing, nonprofits embracing social media as a relationship builder, as a trust engine. And I'm thrilled they reach out and ask questions, and I hope I can help in any way. That's been really one of the coolest parts of this gig, is meeting people like yourself who are just kind of curious as to maybe this might be a good approach to take.
Oh, I appreciate you sharing it. Our time is up. So thank you for joining me on this CX Quick Tips. And also Russel Lolacher is a frequent contributor on CX Global Media, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. Thank you, Russell.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jim.